When you are working with large amounts of source code or large amounts of text or large amounts of anything in a Vim buffer, one of the issues can be that there's just too much information and you need to have some way of seeing an overview of it or boiling it down or focusing in on the stuff that you really care about just at the moment. And Vim has a really nice mechanism that makes it easy to do precisely that. So in many kinds of structured documents, sometimes all you really care about are the structures. So if you're editing some kind of source file, maybe all you care about is to see where the subroutine definitions are. And we can hide away the actual contents of the subroutines. I just want to see the definitions. Or if you're in some kind of HTML document, you may just want to see some high-level tags to show the overall structure of the document, maybe just the head and the body and the section tags, rather than seeing all the content tags as well. So when the details aren't important, or where you just like them to be kind of marked with a placeholder as there's stuff here that you don't need to focus on at the moment, there's a mechanism that allows you to fold away. It's almost as if you took a sheet of paper and folded it up and hid all the stuff that you weren't interested in. And that mechanism is, not surprisingly, called folds. So a fold in Vim is one or more text lines that Vim doesn't actually display. It shows instead some kind of placeholder that says there are a certain number of lines here that we're not looking at the moment. You can set these folds up yourself manually, although very few people actually do that in real life. To set them up manually, you say Z. All of the fold commands operate with a Z. The Z is supposed to represent the folding of a piece of paper with the paper making that Z shape in between, I guess. So you can say ZF to create a fold. And you say ZF and then you give it any kind of motion, just like we've been talking about throughout the class. So you can say ZFAP, for example, to fold the paragraph that you are somewhere inside. Or you can say ZF/ and then a pattern to search for, and it will fold from the current line down to that pattern. So just as with most other commands that use a motion. You can also just say a number of lines Z capital F. So if you want to fold the next 100 lines, 100 Z capital F. Bang, folds it down into a smaller space. So fold a paragraph, fold 20 lines. And then there are a whole series of commands that allow you to interact with this folded information in different ways. So you can open up a folded line to look at the contents that are being hidden with ZO, Z open. Close it again with Z close. You can unfold everything with ZN, no folding at all. You can invert all the folds, fold things that are unfolded, unfold things that are folded with ZI to invert. You can even delete a fold. If you're over a fold with your cursor and you say ZD, it removes that fold entirely. Now that's not removing the text inside the fold, that's just saying there's no longer any compression in this part of the code. We see it always, it's irrelevant to the folding mechanism. And indeed, you can get rid of all your folds with ZE. Now and again, I would say that most of these are not used directly because Vim has more automated and convenient ways of creating folds rather than sitting there all day with your finger on the Z key. The simplest of those is that you can request that folds be inside other folds. So if you create a fold and flatten down a whole lot of text, and then you create another fold around it, the folds nest. So when you open up the outer fold, the inner fold will still be there folded. And you'd have to open that up separately. And you can refold and unfold independently, basically. When you're doing that, you need to use ZM to increase the level of folding, or Z capital M to maximize the level of folding, fold everything up inside each other, and then you have ZR and Z capital R to undo that in the same kind of way. But most people don't need to write their own folds because Vim has a range of different automated folding mechanisms that you can select between simply by setting the appropriate options. It's really tedious to manually insert folds everywhere, so you can choose other approaches. The simplest of those is to say, I'm going to define different levels of folding based on the level of indenting. So the more indented a piece of code or text or whatever is, the more highly I want to fold it. And this is extremely useful both in text documents, which might have structure to them, but particularly in source code, because most source code has an indented structure. So you can literally just turn on fold method indent. It doesn't need to know anything at all about the nature of your language or the syntax of it or the semantics. It just needs to know if this is more indented, I will then fold it more. So for example, you might have a document that was laid out like this, and if you turn on indent-based folding and you say, increase the level of folding for me, then it folds or unfolds the most indented thing first. And if you say increase the level of folding again, then it folds the next level of indenting. And you could unfold that and you'll notice that the nested indents are still there, and we unfold it and I can fold it, and now I'm at the maximum level of indenting because I have no indented text visible at all. So something as simple as setting fold indent gives you a way of getting a more generalized view of any kind of text file by hiding the components that are more indented and therefore less significant in most ways. If you do like syntax coloring and the language that you want to work with has syntax coloring for it, and Vim has hundreds of syntax coloring languages that it can support, then you can also say turn on syntax with syntax enable, and now we've got syntax coloring, but also set the fold method to be according to syntax. And then for all of the different languages that Vim understands the syntax highlighting of, it will use its understanding of that syntax highlighting to fold those languages appropriately. So for example, here's a C file. And I've turned on syntax highlighting, so I get colors everywhere, and I've turned on fold by syntax highlighting, so the things that have been folded are in fact all of the bodies of all of the subroutines. It knows that it should fold up the body of a subroutine. So if I go over that and I say open that fold with a Z open, then it just opens up the body and I can have a look at it myself, and I can close it up again if I want to, and I can open up another one and have a look, but I don't have to. I can just leave it closed and I can just look at the overall structure of the different subroutines that I've got declared here. I could also say I want to reduce the level of folding, so it reduces it by one level, but that means that it still leaves nested blocks folded up. So again, you can see just the top level of your code, and you can say reduce it again, and we can see the next level, and so on and so forth. If you're working with code or with a markup notation that Vim understands, then syntax-based folding can be a very, very easy way of getting quite sophisticated overviews of your entire file just based on what's actually in the file in terms of syntax. The third way that you can automate the folding that Vim will do for you is by using the expression method. And in this method, you set two options. First, you set an option called fold expra for fold expression. And that expression is something that Vim will execute in the Vim script language every time that it has to work out whether or not to put a fold somewhere. In other words, what this is doing is this is telling you what is my criterion for folding a line. What does that line have to match in order for it to be appropriately folded? So in this particular example that I've put here, I've decided that the way that I'm going to describe what a fold should look like is I'm going to get each line and I'm going to try and match it against this pattern, which is a start of line followed by 0 or more dashes. And that will give me a string which is the start of the line and the 0 or more dashes, and I'm going to take the length of that. So in other words, what this fold expression is doing is saying, get each line in turn, count the number of dashes at the start of the line, and use that as a number to indicate how deep this folding goes. The more dashes, the deeper the folding goes. And then I simply say, make my fold method to be an expression, and of course it will use fold expression to get that, and then I get this behaviour. So now I have a file where the level of significance of something is determined by the number of dashes that it has in front of it, and I've turned on folding based on the number of dashes using that fold expression. So now when I say to start folding, it starts with the most heavily dashed lines and folds them all together into single lines. And if I do it again, it does it again. Now with the 2 dash lines, and I do it again, and it does it again with the 3 dash lines. And so I can fold and unfold all that text now on the basis of some expression that I said was the determinant of folding. And of course, if you have that capacity and Vim has a full scripting language underneath the hood of it, then you can pretty much do any kind of computable calculation that determines how it should fold or not fold. So that's 3 useful ways of automating the folding and just seeing the parts that you're particularly interested in. And I discovered when I started using folding that there was a 4th kind of folding that I wanted to do on a regular basis that wasn't supported built into Vim. So I wrote a plugin that made it supported. And I could do that because I could write one of these fold expressions on whatever was appropriate. So this particular plugin solves a problem that I have where what I really want to focus on in a particular buffer is the stuff that I just searched for. So I want to search for something and then I want to see that something, but I don't want to see anything else. I just want to see all the matches that I searched for. Now, one of the things that helps with that is to turn on that feature which allows Vim to mark every match afterwards as being a match. But the problem is that you might have those marked throughout the file, but you have 3 or 4 matches at one point in the file and then it's 100 lines to the next one. And you've got to search through all of those 100 lines looking for the next match. So what I thought to myself was, I would really like it if there was an option that allowed Vim to say, okay, I'm going to hide everything except the matches of the most recent search. So in other words, I have a file like this and I'm interested in a pattern like standard. And there are a few instances of standard throughout the file, but they're quite widely spaced. So I wrote this plugin that allows you to type ZZ. And what ZZ does is it folds around the most recent search. So when I do that, then all I see are the lines and a little bit of context on each side to help me get my bearings that have what I last searched for. The nice thing about this is that this is a dynamic process. So if I do another search now for something like file name, then it's still folding, but it changes what it's folding. And now I see that all the things that are being folded around are file name. Or if I change it to YY error, then I see, well, in fact, there's only one instance of YY error in the whole thing, and I can focus down immediately on that. And this I find to be particularly useful when I'm trying to understand something specific in a whole lot of text or a whole lot of code. I can simply search for what I'm looking for, and Vim will then focus me in on it by hiding everything that doesn't match that search. When you have got folds from any source in a Vim buffer, you need to have some way of navigating around them. And one of the nicest ways that you can set up to do that is automatic opening and closing of folds. Normally, when you put your cursor over a fold, it just sits there and blinks at you. And you have to type Z open or Z close in order to open or close that fold. But if you're moving around within some folded text, if you put your cursor over a fold, and it might be kind of nice if Vim would detect that and just say, you know what, I'll open this fold up for you so you can have a look. And when you took the cursor off that fold, it would close it back up again. And that's what you do when you set fold open and fold close. You set these options, and there are a couple of alternatives you can do for it. Mostly you probably want to set it to always do that. So that's set fold open equals all, set fold close equals all, and then you get this. So here's some of that folded text that we had before, but watch what happens now when I move the cursor down over one of the folds. It immediately opens. Note that it had nested folds which didn't open, but if I move down over them, they would open as well. And when I move past the nested fold, it'll close back up again. And another one will open, and another one will open. And when I jump off the main fold, it all closes up. So turning on fold open and fold close makes it relatively easy to navigate through a heavily folded file without having to be permanently opening and closing things. Just wherever you are, it opens up whatever you're on top of so that you can see it. And this can be a very nice way of interacting with folds without being forever hitting the Z key again. The other thing you can do is you can ask Vim to show you the structure and the nested structure of the folds that you are navigating. And you do that with another option called fold column. And you can set the fold column to any width you like, and it'll take up the first n columns of the left-hand side of your screen, and it will show a little diagram showing the overall structure of the lines that you have folded. Normally people set it to around about 6 because more than 6 levels of folds are a little bit unusual, but you can set it to whatever you like. You set that, and now you get a very bright column over on one side, and yes, there are ways you can configure that. Read about it in the help manual. And you'll see that what it's doing here is it's showing me that I have 2 folds, and when I open the fold up, it shows me that that fold extends for that range of lines and has 2 other folds in it. And when I open that up, it shows me, well, that fold has 2 lines in it, and I can close it up again and open the other one, and oh, there's another level of folding there. And you can see that on the left-hand side, it is showing me the open structure that I have at the moment. So what this is actually going to tell me that's useful here is that when I get past this line, I'm going to close up my entire fold, and sure enough, that's what happens. So it's less unexpected if you have that turned on. Some people like that, some people don't like that. The nice thing is it's an option. You can turn it on, not turn it on, whatever works best for you. If you've turned it on and you suddenly decide you don't like it, then you say set fold colon ampersand, and that just gets rid of it entirely.